Okay. Do we want? Well, okay.
Oh, yeah, hold on. I'm not sure what's going on with the intro. Everybody else can hear me. Sorry, guys. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's me, it's Data,
Hello there.
and we're going to discuss some stuff tonight. We were hoping to have a guest, so there was a mild agenda, but I do have a few standout topics from a conversation that we had with someone, and if Grim just happens to show up today, that would be awesome. Can you guys all hear Data? Somebody
Test.
said
One,
no
two,
data.
three.
You're
Hello.
going through to the chat.
Hello.
Oh, it was a hello data. No reason to be sorry. How rude. Okay. Everything seems to be going good, which is weird, guys. I have to apologize. I'm not like last Saturday. I didn't mix myself up a really strong drink after the bad day. Boy, I have been out in that sun all day working, ripping out shrubs and bushes and vines
Today
and
too.
cutting trees, trying to get
Today
stuff the
too.
way you want to see it, you know?
Today too.
Yeah,
Wow, cool.
yeah. So instead of mixing myself a strong drink, I was smart. I got myself a little screwdriver here, lightly mixed, just to make sure the show goes decent.
I miss having a garden.
I don't have a garden yet. I have a hillside, and little pieces are gonna have to be built in to make it a garden.
Don't be
But
so contrarian. A garden is anything. You just plant it.
yeah,
You
I'm
get it.
more worried about with the landscaping of the backyard and the way the water has to go because I've put in so many drains and I'm still working on water irrigation and making sure the damage from what was done is fixed. So
Well, you know the
water,
rain in Spain. The rain in Spain flows mainly on the plain.
yeah. And Sally picked up seashells by the seashore.
So
So Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers.
my ex-girlfriend used to say "sew buttons."
I always go when someone yells "so" or where they go "so" and pause for a moment. I go a needle pulling thread, la a note to follow. So
Then when I said "well," she would go "water."
all right, so there was a couple of things we're gonna start with just because you mentioned them and you can explain them, and they were kind of cool. So guys, this is what tonight was intended to
I have
be.
I have no idea what our topic is.
Here's here's what I slowly intended for tonight to be. We were introduced to some really cool new mind-blowing ideas that I really wanted to talk about and question and expand on about space and plasma and energy and electricity and so many other cool sciencey things that intrigue me. However, our guest did not show up. And apparently I did
Let's
not
talk
connect
about
Wi-Fi.
ice cream.
Well, hold on. There was something you brought up. And I want to start with that, if at all possible. And
What did I bring up?
something you had brought up was a scientist or a mechanic you heard of that was working on a new way to increase the efficiency and the output of motors using frequency as opposed to amperage.
There's a guy in Canada. His first name is Gerald. And he's been on the internet for the past 5 years. And basically, he's I guess, a self-taught electrician, and he's been basically his belief is that the electric company is basically ripping everybody off. That the electricity you actually use and spend is mostly all just waste. And in actuality, if it was done in a lower amperage but a higher frequency like an RF, like radio frequency, you can move motors and spin things and get unbelievable amounts of torque and barely use any electricity. So that's what he was talking about and whatnot. And a matter of fact, up until recently, he developed some sort of controller box to work with a regular LG.
Oh, we're going to get to... Hold on 1 second, Data. We're going to get to space in a second, Malevolent Rider. This one just seemed mildly interesting in that it kind of applied to the topic of space we're going to get to. So we're going to work our way up on changing an understanding of something before we really blow your mind with something cool. I thought we would work our way into it. So Malevolent, if you can bear with us for a couple minutes and think about the fact everything we have, the electricity is pushed through with amperage. And it's the main way. There's an electricity triangle. It's amps, ohms, and what? Help me, Data. I'm going blank on
Watts.
Amps, ohms, and watts. Ohms is resistance, watts is amount, and amps is power or the push of it. Right? To be simple.
And volts.
And volts.
There's volts too.
Let's not get overly complicated for everybody. But most of the time you use your amperage to push the amount of power through the system. Now, if opposed to using amperage, you're using the power to create a frequency. That frequency does different things. And that's what we're getting at, is using electricity in different ways. Now, what I thought was cool is we had somebody named Grimm. After he popped into the end of the Great Debate for a few, kind of new answers I thought were great. We had a conversation after the show, and what he started to explain was that the concept that we know as dark energy and dark matter was, the theory of it, was inaccurate, and that we need to start all over because everything in space and between everything and that is responsible for controlling everything from gravity to the speed of the expansion of the universe is plasma and energy. It's all electricity being transferred through the plasma through space.
Right, that's what he said.
Now, this seems kind of difficult to understand, but at the same time, it seemed kind of cool to think, okay, so there's another theory that kind of explains a little more of what's going on. And while I can't 100% jump into a new theory of explanation, I can get behind there's a new theory I want to check out. And I was really looking forward to having him here more to hear this out and be able to ask questions about this theory. And to the best of my understandings on it, which I have to admit being that being that this is a hobby, I didn't have as much time today to work on this as I thought I would. I set a timer and that didn't work because I was busy. Things to do. What the hell? I didn't do a lot of research.
You're probably way ahead of it than I am.
Okay, so here is a thought that I have. Let's process space. And then maybe we'll move to comics because Ryder mentioned it. But let's process space. So we've all heard about the Big Bang that happened, 45.5 million years ago to the best of our or billion years ago to the best of our understanding. And
Yeah,
the reason that we have that understanding is because we've sent out telescopes and satellites that measure everything, including microwaves, X-ray waves, and more. And I think it was the microwave spectrum, and I was just listening to another stream mention this, that
I can give you the exact thing.
Yeah, there's a map.
When microwave communication was first set up, the guys who invented it had a little bit of static that they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And they ended up finding out that it was actually coming from everywhere. It wasn't a satellite around our Earth, but it was literally coming from all points in space. And that's what led to the Big Bang, because what they were hearing was the echoes of the Big Bang.
Okay.
And when you look at it now, you can see like a huge cloud that completely encircles the galaxy everywhere we look. And you can actually see that's the outer edge of the Big Bang still expanding.
But that seems kind of... Let's break this down to feasibility, and maybe you'll understand why when I think deeply about that map, it doesn't quite make sense to me, okay?
Okay.
We can see waves traveling at the speed of light towards us. We understand the time it takes for them to travel the distance to us. For the most part, we understand most of the basic physics that allow us to understand how things travel based on our concept of time and gravity and travel. How does... pardon me, I just tried to explain that so well, I just blanked for a moment.
I think I caught enough of where you're heading that
Yeah,
I think
how
I may have
can we see 45.5 billion light years away if we
right.
can't determine 45.5 billion light years worth of speed in a millisecond because we can only see so far per the time that we look at that?
Okay, so
doesn't that bring you a weird...
yeah, but I'll kind of explain it for you. At least as far as, and this is a guess on my part. As you know, radiation waves, they have a start point and an end point, right?
Okay.
And they travel like a ray. They travel, correct? And what you're imagining is that ray traveling from that outermost point to us. But if we're talking about the Big Bang, think of it this way. Think of the rays starting at the singularity where the Big Bang actually started. And then imagine that ray, that string, unraveling off the reel all the way out too. So it's actually not coming towards us. It's already here. It's been here the whole time.
Okay.
You see,
I understand that. I completely understand that. That's like the light from our sun has been here for longer than the planet has. It's been here for longer than the planet has. The rays from the Big Bang, quote unquote, because we can look at that in a minute, have been here for far longer than anything else that we know how to detect. Okay? I'm with that. But by all of the knowledge we have, by everything we've found out so far and looked at, we can't measure things to travel any faster than a certain point. So if we take a picture looking out, we're looking out from the perspective that we are at, okay? And
across space.
if we're looking from our perspective across space and we see that we're encompassed inside this microwave radiation, we're seeing the microwave radiation. How accurate can we be from our perspective until we offer a second perspective to see what we're looking at from? Let's say we sent a satellite into uh, another galaxy, and from that galaxy the radiation had a different shape, and that maybe we were just encompassed in some very large X-ray radiation cloud that we don't know anything about. Just throwing that out there.
So
Just
yeah, so in
just
other
think
words,
about that. What
in
if
other
what
words,
we're seeing is only from our perspective?
right? In other words, like two eyes give you depth perception, and one eye doesn't. You know, if we're just looking at this one thing from this one point of view, from this one spot, is that actually what we're seeing?
Or are we
Or
being
yeah,
misled
or
by
it is what
what
we're
we think
seeing,
we see?
but is that the reality of what we're seeing?
Right. Do you see where I'm going? So allow that to let you question everything. Is the Big Bang the Big Bang? This is something I came up with listening to other people talk about this just an hour ago on another stream hosted by Unholy Mole. So if I get boring, please don't leave. Go check out Unholy Mole. It probably is about this interesting, maybe a hair bit more. But I started thinking, how can we be absolutely certain of the Big Bang if we have one perspective look at what we consider to be the origins and the proof of the Big Bang, or the proof of the theory of the Big Bang, or it's not the proof of, it's what caused the theory of the Big Bang. They try to come up with something to explain for it.
There's a saying. The saying is, we know what's right until it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Now,
So, in
I'm
other
not
words,
saying I
what,
know better. Not
no,
at
no.
all.
What I'm saying is, what we know, we know. Now, it could be right. We think it's right, but until we prove it wrong, we assume it's right. There's also what we think we know, and then there's also what we're led to believe.
There's a song about that, isn't there?
I don't know,
Baby,
but
you know I'm
what we
wrong.
don't know, you could wrap everything, all those three other things up, and what we don't know is even multiple times more than that.
Right.
So
And the worst part
we're
is
as a race, we're just getting started.
the
We're basically still burning stuff.
the worst part is we don't know
We're one
what we
step
don't
out
know.
of the we're one step out of the cave. Even I mean, if you think about it, steam technology, right? Do you consider steam technology old?
Yes and no, it's still used. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
been
actually
modified to a point where it's not how most people think of steam technology. It's that the
right.
steam is we create the steam in different ways. So that same steam technology is applied by using different metrics to create the steam.
Right. We use steam and turbines. So, in other words, we use nuclear power to produce steam to turn turbines. But ultimately, all we're doing is what we did in the 1800s, which is heat up water. We haven't, what I'm trying to say is, we haven't moved as far as we think we have. We haven't, our technology may be really, radical to a caveman, but if you look a little deeper, we really haven't moved much further than still burning stuff.
Yeah. Which is efficient for burning stuff.
Well, there's arguments to that.
Um, here is some weird things that I always come across when I think and talk about space with people. And I have maybe slightly above rudimentary understanding of space and space travel, time, light, the dilation and the correlation between the traveling at the speed of light and the perspective of which you see, based on the theories that I have been exposed to. And like Ragnar Alfbert, we're just going to call you Ragnar from now on. Like Ragnar says, we'll start with the Rick and Morty lobster paradox where the cycle is over. I have not actually watched any Rick and Morty ever.
Are you kidding me?
That's the same paradox in gravity being the strongest theory we know. The strongest
How the hell
theory
have
we
you not
know
watched
of
any Rick?
hold on, in science, but still only a theory because everything in science can only be a theory, which is the one I wanted to pick out. Yes, I have never
Theory,
watched Rick
you
and
know, there's two.
That
There's
lost
two.
me a viewer.
I'm sorry. What
I
happened?
lost a viewer because I've never watched Rick and Morty.
Jeez, I'm gonna have to take you through at least a couple Rick and Morty
All right,
episodes.
here's the thing though. It's still going, right?
What, Rick and Morty?
Yeah. They're still making it?
Well, we're waiting.
Like season
we're
3.
waiting with bated breath for the next season. We're not quite sure when because the guys that wrote it are in contractual talks with the Cartoon Network.
They make another season. I'll wait another year to watch it.
Well, you gotta catch up.
It's one of those things where it's not wintertime, and doing YouTube is not the time for me to sit and watch videos because I'm trying to accumulate a lot of knowledge.
You know
but now that summer's here, now that summertime's here in the early... Go ahead.
They're not very long cartoons, and they actually move real fast. So.
Right. So now that summertime's here, what I'll do is in the morning and in the evening, before and after I do other things, I'll sit down and binge on several shows. And
Good.
I burn through seasons of things so quick.
Good.
Like when you sit down in a recliner at the end of, 12, 13 hours of moving rocks and dirt.
There are not that many episodes. In other words, I think there were only like 10 or 12 episodes per season.
Right. So. And I try to find the stuff that usually, oh, look, they canceled the series. Oh, there's 3 seasons? I'll check it out. I'm sorry, that's just the way I am. I like to binge everything in the show and go, I've seen it all! Yay! My wife's watching the 3rd season of Gotham. I stupidly watched the first 2, and I have not seen the 3rd.
You see what Ragnar said the last, right?
They are good shows to smoke a blunt to. Yes, but thanks to the holiday, I'm a little low. Discord and YouTube.
So yeah, I mean space. It's the final frontier. We can go on these voyages.
You want to quote that? Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
No man has gone before.
What?
Were you a Trekkie?
I've seen every episode, I think, at least once. Every episode of every season except for the new ones, which I again am indifferent about.
Season of every show?
I've seen all the DS9s, all the Next Generations, most of those at least twice. I've seen, I think, 50, maybe 60% of the original seasons. I've seen all of the movies. I may have seen all of the originals.
How about Voyager?
I loved Voyager for specific reasons. 7 of 9 just kept me going back.
And how about Enterprise?
No, I can't say as I've watched more than one season of that. I'm not entirely... The
first season was kind of but it made up for itself. But it ended...
I'm going to go back and try to catch up with it. Now, there's something that needs to be said is, as a man who likes to be open to new ideas, especially when it comes to space and science, Star Trek has always been a fond thing of mine because what was it in the 60s? It came out, the writers of Star Trek tried to keep it. Gene Roddenberry wanted the show to illustrate possibilities of human science and technology. So
Now, when you
things that were being studied and being contemplated and thought to be truths of science and technology is what he wanted in the show. Most of the
right,
show is based on things that were being studied or being tested and thought to be real in the
so
future.
when you look at Star Trek,
Until the transporters.
when you look at Star Trek, do you see communism?
Yes. Yes, in a way. Hold on. Our military, as a United States citizen, our military is a communist system. It is run by a person in charge. That person puts people in charge. That person puts people in charge. Okay? That's basically a communist system. It
Right.
basically says there is a dictator, and that dictator who says that something goes is what goes. You do what's said. Period.
That's the only. In other words, the military aspect is the only thing you see as communism.
Think about when you watch Star Trek. Anything that has to do with Starfleet orders is in a militarized structure.
Right? No, no, no.
And
I
there
mean,
are ships. There are
I
ships in Star Trek that
understand.
are non-military,
You
and
don't. You don't have to explain that. I understand it, but there's also a couple other aspects. The fact that they have no money. The fact that their jobs are whatever they enjoy. I mean, there's a lot of people today talking about how, well, there aren't going to be enough jobs for everybody, so we're going to talk about giving people a salary to do nothing.
I love how the episode where the entire language was metaphors related back to the planet were almost impossible to decipher. I always thought it was very accurate representation of us try. Is that the one that Sinatra and Aiden Paladin were talking about? Where they always talked in this slogan, and then Picard had to fight the monster that showed up.
Oh,
The Next
right,
Generation.
right. I remember that episode.
Yep, I do
The-
too.
his ship, his ship, the sails unfurled.
Yeah,
And
something.
the whole,
So
the
and
whole
so and so at something.
right at an island, and then the such and so fights the other thing, and then or they show up on the island together, or no, they show up on the island separate. They fight the thing, and then they leave the island together. And
yes,
everything is in what metaphor.
yeah, it's the whole language. It was really cool
Right.
episode. It was weird to think of, and it made sense at the end. And yes, communism, socialism, absolutely, but those are good, only available because of automation. That's where communism is salvageable. It's a good government for as long as we have the robots. Okay, let's say that people don't have jobs to do. Let's say robots and programming and shit actually takes over. First of all, that'd be the worst thing for the human species. First. Second, yes, that's where communism can take over. When robots can provide anything and there's no worries, they can increase production or decrease production based on the need and supply needed for the people. That's different. We're nowhere near there. Communism, social. Yes, communism and socialism are present in Star Trek. Do you notice that everybody who works for something gets rations? However, people that come to the ship as guests also somehow get rations.
Well, also, I mean, people don't have a lot of stuff. They have mementos, but it's not like they have to even pack clothing. They have everything just come out of the wall.
Right. Now, there's something that most people overlook about Star Trek is that those aren't unlimited. there's actually cells that allow for the production of those items, and when those cells become depleted, they can't use those.
Oh, see, I thought it was the same technology as the transporter. It
No,
was
it's a
just
matter
reverse.
antimatter.
Energy to matter as opposed to energy
Right.
or matter to energy and back to
But
matter.
what it is, and I forget what episode it was. I think it was in the second season of The Next Generation. They explained how vaguely, very, very vaguely, how they had to have some sort of specific energy to be able to create matter.
I don't know.
It was barely touched in the show. There's one episode, maybe the second, maybe the third season of The Next Generation. The replicators go out and they're trying to fix them. And I want to say LaForge is going over the process of how to fix them and explains that a certain energy is low and the packs that can transition the energy are going bad or something stupid like that. But it was covered one vague time. But I want to say
Well,
it's a limited amount, or they need something specific to be able to do that.
let me ask you something. You like the original episode with Kirk?
Are you talking the ones way back where Kirk had just taken over for? I
Well,
can
I'm
never
I'm just saying.
remember the
Yeah,
old captain's
I'm
name.
not talking about the very first episode where Kirk wasn't even the captain. But I'm just saying the original series, the first 3 years of Star Trek. Did you
Yeah.
enjoy that show?
All right, let's say this. Since I watched it in a time a couple of decades after it was made, I can find some appeal to how they did it for the time they did it in. The show had some cool thoughts to it. The thing I've always disliked was the outfits have always been kind of a leotard.
Sort of.
Yeah, they've almost always been some sort of leotard type outfit, and that bothered me. Don't ask me why. It just did. No
Do you
belt
know
line.
you know why Gene Roddenberry came up with the transporter?
I know it was added later, and I want to say it was him and one of his consultants, and I think one of his children argued over whether or not to add it.
No,
And finally, he
no, no,
agreed.
no. No. Ready for this? It's very practical. The shuttle was still under construction, and they had a deadline, and they needed to get Kirk on a planet, and they didn't have the shuttle to take the shots of it, so he came up with the transporter.
See, that was one of the things that was always vague, and it was one of the things that when you look at the technology and the writing of how they believe the technology should be, the transporters were always the thing that everybody stated don't fit in.
Well, I'll tell you, if you liked the original series,
The Tribbles,
you've heard of all these fan based shows, right?
I've heard of some of them. I'm not into the I think it's funny, let me make fun of it. I'll watch a few of them here and there,
No,
but
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually one particular show. It's called, and if you want, go ahead and look it up right now. It's called Star Trek Continues. And what they did was they all love Star Trek, and what their goal was to finish the episodes of the first series. In other words, the first series ended like very suddenly, so there was still some stuff left hanging. In other words, they never made it back to Earth. Well, in the 12 episodes that these guys made, they wrapped all that up. And I'll tell you, they did it in such a way, and the acting is so good, spot on, that if you blurred your eyes, you would think it was Kirk and Spock.
hmm.
Are you looking it up right now?
No, I'm gonna have to do it later because I'm always afraid I'm gonna lose something if I try to load something during a stream.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I had a blue
Well,
screen of death the other day. I really need to fix my
uh,
computer.
maybe I can do it. Hold on. Let's see.
Maybe you can do it. Let me see what I have set up from last week to share things. Maybe
Let's
this
see.
one? Or this one?
Where's that? Google.
What
Is
am I
Google?
showing?
Oh, here we go. Okay. So now if I let's see, how do I do this? Can I open
I
up a
should.
browser here? How do I share my screen with you?
In your Google Hangouts, move your
Yeah.
mouse. Click on the screen, move your mouse to the left. You should see a box with a green curved arrow that's like a share button.
Okay. Screen share. Okay, there we go. And now I can screen share. Let's see, screen one and screen. Oh, okay, cool. It's actually showing both my monitors. So if I go like this, okay, so now you can see the hangout in the hangout in the hangout. So now if I go like this,
You set that up, and on my end, I am going to attempt to try
uh,
and do the same
back
for our viewers.
in use. There it is.
I'm sure you completely understand the reason why I don't want to do that.
What?
Load any more pages while I'm
Oh
running
yeah,
this.
no, because your little laptop, even though it's a killer laptop, is limited.
No, it's
So
not that. It's the bandwidth. As soon as I try to load something, this Google Hangout is going to crash, and I've got enough stuff
okay,
running that
okay, no
my
problem.
computer is
You
going to
see?
crash.
Can you see my screen now?
Everybody can see your screen now, so if you have anything
Oh
you would
really?
like to hide, you better
Okay,
do it.
well, that's fine. Look, so here's Star Trek Continues, and this is actually a YouTube channel. They also have their own website, and this is an example of some of their shows. They have about 12 of them, and they took the Enterprise through a whole bunch of great shows, and then all the way back to where they were welcomed back to Earth.
All
So
right. Link me in the side chat, or yeah, link me in the side chat the URL, and I will definitely check it out later because I loved. I need to rewatch some of the old episodes. I was maybe
well, again,
12 when I watched them.
these aren't they literally built an exact replica of the stage at Desilu Studios. But yeah, it's pretty neat. I enjoyed it immensely. The shows are really well done, very accurate, spot on. Let's see, side chats.
The one on the Google Hangout, or share it with everybody, and I'll grab it from there.
Okay, well, oh, okay, yeah, I'll put it. That's fine. Here we go. Paste.
Ooh, you're looking at me, looking at you, looking at me, looking at you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just a nice, relaxing, disgusting show. I don't know how. I remember sort of how we got to Star Trek, but let's think about this. I want to talk about, and I'm a little upset Mr. Grimm didn't get back to me, and I've been watching my conversation with Grimm if nothing has lit up, and I only had one way to get hold of him. So we're going to try, we may try this one more time later next week. If we're traveling through space and we find out this space is made of plasma and energy, doesn't that actually help? Think about this the way I'm thinking about this, that traveling through space and doing 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 what we humans do, knowing that it's made of plasma and an energy that we may be able to collect and or utilize, that would help us with traveling through space.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And
Right now, I mean, there's a website, there's a YouTube channel called Suspicious Observers. I watch them every morning with coffee. They do space weather news. So in other words, they'll look at the satellites that are in stationary orbit around the sun, and they see solar flares and coronal holes, that sort of stuff, and then they give us a heads up on what's heading our way. Now, this guy's been doing it for about 5 years. He was the theories he had when he started out, mainstream laughed at, and now his theories are being accepted. And some of them are this: that the sun and the earth and all the planets are connected electrically, that the sun literally controls not only our weather, but, and I'm not talking about weather as in the sun is hot, so summer is hot and winter is cold. No, we're literally storms and storm fronts and that. And the sun's energy controls our earthquakes.
Yes. Do you know
And
what though?
He's actually invented an app for your smartphone that will give you a heads up for all the space weather and earthquakes. And this app has gotten 80% correct at predicting where and when an earthquake over 6.0 will occur.
That's actually really cool too, because
yeah, that's really cool.
It'd be cooler if he could predict it down to like a 3.0.
Oh, come on.
But I mean, 6.0 is awesome. The problem is 6.0s happen maybe 3 to 6 times a year.
More than that, but yeah, I mean, still.
Well, we get a lot of 3.5 to 4.5s, and I tried to watch the earthquakes because I have family in California, and it does give you all the alerts when you watch the website, but it gives you the after alert. Here's what happened.
Right.
I don't see a lot of 6s and higher.
Yeah, but the 6s and higher are the ones
are
you
the
have to
worst
worry.
ones, yeah. Not saying they're not. I'm just saying, they're not as common as would be.
Right. I mean, but
cool
the
technology.
4s, we've seen videos on YouTube where it shakes the cars around and people freak out and they run out of their house and it ends up being like a neighborhood street party. But well, and their dishes fall off the shelf.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But if you have a 1.0 earthquake, to go from a 1.0 to a 2.0, the 2.0 is not 2 times that of a 1.0. Like it's 10 times.
Right.
A 3.0 is 10 times that of a 2.0. A 4.0, 10 times that of a 3.0. Yes. So, obviously, a 6 is extremely bad.
Right, and a 7 and an 8 is even worse. And and scientists predict, we haven't seen a 10, but they say that if we ever did see a 10, it'd be like the entire West Coast from Washington all the way down to Mexico.
Escape from LA all over again. Yay! Kill LA! No.
Or was that 2012?
Okay, so here's another thought that Mr. Grimm had that I wanted to talk about that I thought was interesting. Coming back from space. Let's bring it back to planet Earth. Do you know what I'm talking about? Let's look inside planet Earth for a moment and talk about what Mr. Grimm was talking about. And this is not me making fun of him. I really wish he was here because I really want to pick at these arguments and find out why and where and what to look at. And he gave me some information I just haven't had time to look at. I'm sorry. Do you know what I'm talking about, Data? Do you know what I'm talking about with the pools and the unlimited item that we're warring over all the time?
Oh, the oil. How oil is. Oil wasn't, in his opinion, oil was not dinosaur juice. But
honestly, I thought about this.
Naturally occurring. I've thought about it too.
Now,
It's
I don't know
natural.
how I feel about it.
It's a natural occurring process that basically it's hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons are found in nature. It doesn't necessarily have to be, cooked up dinosaur juice. And he said that some oil reserves are actually replenishing themselves. Listen, we can get into the big, oil debate. I personally think that we can't if we want to survive as a species, we can't go and burn every tree down and burn all the coal in the earth and burn all the oil in the earth and continue to do that forever. There's a point. But at the same time, I don't believe in man made global warming. So there's that aspect. But I do believe
I
that
believe men have made it worse.
corporations, if a corporation has a choice between polluting his neighbor to save some money as opposed to disposing of waste the proper way, he'll pollute his neighbor every single time.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect, which I kind of pisses me off that the EPA is gone. It also pissed me off that the $1 billion that was collected in the 70s for the Superfund sites disappeared.
We have enough coal for 30,000 years, says Liberal Just Get the Bullet, too. Um,
Well,
hold on, but that number would increase the less we depend on coal. And as we have developed, we are beginning to depend on non-burning substances some of the time. Most of that, what are we at, like 30-something%?
what
No,
a
not
nuclear power?
probably not even 30-something. We're probably barely off of 10%, aren't we?
Oh, yes, we can Google it right now.
How much of
Um,
our electricity is
right.
created by replenished or what's the word? Not replenished, but non-replenished or why can't I think of the name of the fuel that sunlight and water are called as opposed to coal and oil? There's a
Huh?
name for that.
Solar? What?
Solar, wind, and water energy.
Right. Okay, right now,
Renewable.
about
Renewable
65
energy.
about 65% of utility scale electricity generation in the United States was produced from fossil fuels, coal, natural gas, and petroleum.
So
About
less than
20%
40.
was from nuclear energy, and about 15% from renewable energy resources. These are
Oh.
these are numbers from 2016.
Now that 15%,
Also,
that's just shy of
15%.
an eighth, isn't it?
1 second. We're also talking about 8.4%. I'm sorry, 8.4% of non-hydroelectric renewables and 6.5% of hydroelectrical. So, in other words, dam and water gravity.
Huh. I thought it would be a little higher by now. Wouldn't you?
Well, remember, the past 20 years, we haven't really built a new nuclear power plant
Okay,
because
so 20%
because of
of
the
our
bad
energy is nuclear. Wouldn't you think we would have surpassed that by solar and
the
wind energy
problem.
by now?
Well, okay, the problem with solar is it's the sheer space that's needed. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad idea to put, let's say, put solar on every roof of every building and let it trickle into the grid. It would not only save money for the person that owns the building, but it would also spread the creation of electricity across the grid as opposed to making it in one singular spot. But that's the issue with solar. It takes up so much damn land. We could never see the whole thing with power too is it's not only sustaining what we're
There
using,
he is.
but it's growth.
Oh,
There has to
how
be
come I didn't notice that? Mr. Grimm, hop into Discord. Check your messages for me. We have been waiting for you. Why didn't I notice it was him that said renewable? I'm looking at the chat. I'm trying to pay more attention to you when you're talking to the chat. Sorry, chat, but I'm trying to pay attention to both, so I glanced over and realized I missed it. So, Mr. Grimm is in our chat tonight, and here it is, renewable energy. There's a good argument that oil is actually a renewable energy abiotic. All right.
Shit, the show's almost over.
Yeah, well, my wife understands. I've already warned her if I go over an hour, then I go over an hour. I'm sorry. Shit happens.
Shit happens.
Shit happens. Bring a towel. Whenever you get shit on your face, make sure you have a towel.
Your wife bought you food. Are you eating it now, or did you already eat it?
Oh, let's see. There you are. Let me click on your conversation and see if I still have the Hangouts. Nope. You're already there. Let me get you the Hangout link. Sorry, anybody else hanging out and paying attention to our cool conversation. Let's hope this is about to get cooler, because I love being exposed to new thoughts and processes and ways of looking at things. So in Grimm's Discord, I still have enough to drink. Yes, I still have enough to drink. I have a soda now. We should be good.
Are you talking to yourself again?
Mm-hmm. The cool thing is, when I talk to myself and I have viewers, I'm talking to however many viewers I have, minus 2 robots and myself.
Okay.
So, hello everybody out there.
All right.
Mr. Grimm, how are you doing?
I made it.
Hello,
I'm good.
Grimm.
I'm very good. I had to swallow my food. I didn't want to get on and sandwich.
Awesome. So let's do this. We're taking a
oil
nice
is abiotic.
Slow look. Hold on. Let me rein you in for just a minute. I want you to calm down with us a little, because we got an audience. And while some of us can understand fast talk and going through things, we want to slow things down. We want to look at it. We want to pick at these. We want to really start to try to understand the parts that we really don't understand.
Excellent.
And we've already been doing this for 55 minutes, so you've missed quite a bit. So should we start with the oil, or should we back talk to plasma and electricity? Or should we...
Well, they're one and the same. They're both... It's both... It's
hold on, though. Like I said, you got to rein this in. All right, let's take this in small carrier topics, and then maybe we'll expand on it later. All right, so let's take small sections of the topic and break it up. Right now, we were just talking about the oil in the planet and how it's replenishing.
Okay.
And we can be semi with that, but we also had data just pull up a statistic that said 20% of our energy roughly is nuclear, 15 is renewable, and that about 80 of it was coal and oil, right?
65, I think.
I was gonna say there's a lot of percentage in there in that one. But yeah, exactly. Let me slow down a second and talk to you about some of the people that I've talked to that are in the oil industry, have been in the oil industry since the 80s. And like Debbie, her name is on YouTube or Google is Lost Horizon 52. And she's an insider with the oil industry for a long time. And she says that it's well known in her circles that those wells refill themselves at a rapid rate. Some of them, get capped off, and 2 decades later, they're completely full and high pressure again. And I found that to be interesting after some of the research that I uncovered about, you've heard of the Rosetta mission? When NASA lands on the comet, they landed on Comet 67P.
Right.
Okay, well, in their investigation for what's going on the comet, they found this rapid hydrocarbon formation and water not coming from sublimating jets, but actually being chemically created, electrochemically, in the coma, actually, instead of on the nucleus of the comet. And what's happening on the comet is oxidation and reduction. It's basically like the process of electrolysis. When you take the positively charged hydrogen ions that are ripping through the solar, away from the sun, and you have this negatively charged object moving towards the positively charged ions, it's creating an electrical discharge. And that discharging effect is actually stripping high oxygen and off of different silicates and metallics, and these are off-gassing and recombining to make more complex compounds in the coma of the comet and falling back down to the surface of the comet, or being pulled back down electrostatically to the surface of the comet over and over again, producing more and more complex compounds. So now that we can see it happening, we know that this is also a mechanism which we should be looking for on Earth and inside of Earth. And now it's like, okay, there's no dinosaurs on the comet. There are no plants forming all of this oil. And we know that, in Geneva, it was said by decree, no less. And I'm sure most people don't know about this until they look it up. And that happens. There's a lot of stuff I talk about. People go, whoa, what the heck? But by decree, it was announced that oil is organic in Geneva because it has hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. Well, I mean, we know that lots of stuff has hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon, and it's not all organic. So that's just nonsense. And but it's still held like a dogmatic theory by decree. And I think the major reason is because there's a lot of money in us believing that oil's about to run out any second.
Doesn't Neil deGrasse Tyson...
Otherwise, why would it be so expensive?
When you said it, Neil deGrasse Tyson goes around saying that, 80% of the universe is made of hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen.
Yeah. Oxygen.
That, it's so abundant that there's no reason to not think that it's everywhere. Everywhere we look, it seems to be there. So, yeah, that makes sense. But I'm going to divert you for no good reason other than my mind works like that. And this is where I started the show. And things confuse me. So I'm going to offer confusion to you. Okay. Sorry to go back to anybody paying attention for over an hour. There is a X-ray photograph of the universe. And we believe in the Big Bang and how all of this happened. And hold on.
The photograph of the echo of the Big Bang.
Okay, so hold on. I posed an alternate thought about this, that what if the Big Bang, I'm ignoring it for the moment, but what if the Big Bang is not what we think it is? What if we think it is just some sort of electronic cloud that we may possibly be in, that we see because of what we're looking with? That if we looked from another perspective, we might see it differently, or we might see that we're enveloped in it.
Yeah, it's not even a reality. It's unnecessary. The universe is not homogeneous enough to be a Big Bang.
See, now there's things that the more I look at some of it and try to apply my numbskull common sense, which really, I'm not a highly intelligent person. I'm not.
No, listen, they have galaxies that are polarly aligned, which the Big Bang cannot explain. Matter of fact, it proves that the Big Bang, there's some other intrinsic mechanism going on other than just gravitation.
Right. But also looking at that, when you look at the X-ray photograph that says we're 45.5 billion years old as a galaxy, and I look at that and I think, is that just how we see it? And what Data threw in was you offer dimension with a second eye. Isn't that something like what you said, Data?
Well, in other words, what he's saying is we're seeing it, but we're only seeing it, let's say, with no depth of field, with no depth perception. So if we had a second point of view, a second eye per se, maybe we would see it in a completely different way.
Well, that's very true. We do see it in a different way when we look at it in the magnetic spectrum. Actually, we see a lot of the light that isn't visible light to our eye in the magnetic spectrum. And when you know about circuit theory and you understand electricity and circuit theory and how it behaves in plasmas, and then you know that's what that is out there, then you know there are no magnetic fields over those vast distances without their causative electric currents, the currents that cause them, right?
Okay, let me try and re-explain this. When you close one eye and you look at something, you realize the shape is there. You see its shape. You might understand its texture. You can define it. But when you open the second eye, let's say we sent a satellite to Alpha Centauri, and that satellite did an X-ray readout and saw that we were inside a shaped cloud that had these effects to us. Which, don't get me wrong, I can completely go with and understand everything you're telling me and then say, but you know what? What if it only applies within the perspective that we're in? And if we leave the perspective and go to another area, the perspective may change. The qualities may change.
Yeah, I was talking about metaphorically another eye, as far as being able to see it through the eyes of somebody who's familiar with the actual, circuitry and what we're looking at. Like, so, I mean, another eye would not be very helpful, but another comprehension level would be, right. And so if you're not familiar with like the shapes that electricity makes in plasmas through different frequencies and currents, then you're not going to be able to identify those things as what they are in space when you see them in nature. You're going to be like, oh, that looks like a black hole or something other than reality, because you won't have a reality in your head. You have theoretical theories in your head instead of physical experimental physics, right? And that's what's wrong with science today. I mean, we're so much more apt to believe in unicorn farts and things like that, or near infinite densities. And think about that before you say it out loud. Near infinite. I mean, how close can you get to infinite? It's like, and people fall for this kind of stuff, like,
but hold on, you can also understand that near infinite density, being that the galaxy is immense and is creating. Hold on, you can sort of understand how that logic kind of follows, though. If the galaxy is so immense that different things can happen, then how can we define near infinite if we can't measure the density of the densest items that we haven't encountered?
Yeah, but that's never what they've ever found and observationally. It's never observationally. But
do you?
I know, but that's when you falsify. In science, we falsify things. We come up with parameters that would falsify a thing. Now, if we have a null hypothesis that we do not have falsification for, we have no parameters to falsify it, or each time we come up against those parameters, we decide not to falsify it, we just ad hoc and change the idea, then we're not doing science. Welcome to the 20th century. We're not doing science. We're not. We're sitting there. I mean, plasma physicists and, some of the guys in NASA are, but most of the astronomers and astrophysicists are not. They're still using banging rocks together theories and shit like that. They're not even familiar with the circuit theory. And what's happening is some of the papers are being written now, and they're discovering these huge electric fields and whatnot. And they're still trying to attribute them to black hole nonsense, when in fact that none of that's necessary now that they know that those interactions or mechanisms come into play. See, because we know that the electric force is 10 to the 39th power stronger, and people don't understand that number, so I try to formulate a better understanding to it, so to make it sound even more ridiculous, it's 1,000 billion times stronger than gravitation is. So I mean, we know that force is there, so we don't expect gravity to be the one that's doing any of the work now. That's the problem. And plus, there's another idea for what gravity is, and it doesn't have anything to do with the space-time fabric. It has to do with the distortion on the subatomic particle on the atoms. But that's a whole different another ball of wax, and people aren't ready for that discussion yet. But check out Wallace Thornhill's paper on it, and check out the Principia Scientifica's assessment of Wallace Thornhill's electric gravity. They say it's feasible.
I have a couple of quick things because I'm in an effort to, one, slow you down for our audience and myself. Two, a question popped into my head, and it just had it again and I lost it. It was it'll come back to me.
Plasma.
Right.
Anything that'll get us closer to a hover car, I'm for.
The other part is that Data and I had a conversation later yesterday, maybe, about the space travel time correlation and the time it takes to travel between, and how, I'm sorry, but the way my mind works, I try to see things in that third and fourth dimension, and there's no way to fold a three-dimensional item.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
That's true.
Makes FTL travel by a dynamic universe folding technique of bringing something closer, one point closer to another, just doesn't make sense.
Right. I mean, we all read the book A Wrinkle in Time in elementary school, right?
Okay, and on top of that,
just because we can conceptualize the idea, it doesn't make it real.
On top of that, Dad and I started having a conversation about measurable travel, on how we only know that speed travels at which we have defined the measurability of it at 300,000 miles per hour, whatever, something like that, 299,000 something miles per hour at the speed of light is the measurable, attainable, no faster than that speed.
1,100 and some odd number. But yeah, the speed of light is not a constant. We all know that. I mean, you ever pass light through through water? You know, it refracts. It slows down. There's refraction from plasma atmospheres all through space. Stars have huge plasma atmospheres. The heliopause is a plasma atmosphere around the sun. All the planets live inside of it, basically, and so do all the other stars that have planets and that are inside of them. And so when we're looking at things like what we're calling Einstein rings, proof of gravitational lensing, all the shit you hear in the magazines and everything, they're leaving out a mechanism that's super simple and easily understood, and does the same thing and actually does the thing that we're looking at, and that's chromatic aberration. That's a chromatic refraction. So we're basically looking through atmospheres of galaxies and seeing light around the rings around them. And that's, when it was first discovered with a glass telescope, by the way.
Wasn't it discovered with a glass telescope that refracted through a prism, and the prism determined different light wave variances?
Well, no, it was just this. It was discovered with a regular glass telescope. Anyway, but that's the idea, because it was glass. It does, there is refraction and blah blah blah. But still, that's not the reason why it was seen. It was just that the idea of it being a glass telescope should have hit Galileo on the head and said, "Oh yeah, well it could be aberration." I mean, there's the idea of it right there for him. But instead, it's like cherry picking. They're trying to use every bit of whatever misrepresentation they can to hold up a dogmatic theory that literally cannot be held up with observation. That's why we created the idea of dark energy. There is no dark energy or dark matter. It's regular old energy, regular old matter. It's plasma. There's a fourth state of matter. It's literally right there in their face. But by decree, before we had spaceships, that means just by decree, like the king says, this is way this is. And that's what happened. So by decree, it was said that, everything was gravitationally based, and there was no electric forces doing all this heavy lifting out in space 100 and something years ago. See, but now we know different. But see, now that we know different, the world's been going on, thinking that it's this other way for so long that it's a paradigm changer to get up on this information, to change it now.
Right.
So it's becoming,
like I said,
right. It's like
you don't know
when the
what
Earth was flat.
Know.
how easy was it to change everybody's mind about that? Probably not very easy at all. It probably took a long time for people to go, okay, it's round. I get it now. It makes sense. The equinox.
The earth is
Oh, that's
flat. Blasphemy! Kill him!
yeah, right. No, the other way around. But yeah, the earth is round. Kill him! Blasphemy! The Bible says flat, and he's like, no, it doesn't. And who cares what that thing says anyway?
We
Sorry,
are living
sorry.
up to the movie Idiocracy Ragnarok. I talk about it all the time. I had another
Oh my
question,
goodness,
and
if
it
you're not joking right
absolutely
now.
escapes me. And it was a really good question. I was trying not to interrupt.
I don't care. Interrupt.
I lost it. It is so
Too late.
far gone. We are overtime nonetheless. But what I like is
We're talking about faster than light travel.
right. It was something before that, and I forget what it was. And I was holding on to
Plasma.
it.
Something to do with plasma and oil, maybe.
No, it was an
Well,
oddball
since
question.
electricity
That's
is
what happens.
everywhere and it's unlimited and and it's that powerful, I assume you think that faster than light travel is possible.
No,
It isn't.
I don't think I don't think light travel is possible for us.
In other words, okay, you're right.
All right,
Because
so do you
I
understand
don't
then
think time
alien
travel
species?
is possible. Put it that way.
do you think
Light travel may be possible, but I don't think time travel is possible.
we can go very, very, very fast and actually start visiting other stars?
Well, here's the thing: the human body is very fragile. So, like any, if you're going the speed of light, and and you don't have inertia dampers, then you're dead. You're gonna.
Well,
Yeah,
let's say
we've mildly discussed
flat.
that. Cognitive thought brought to me that you'd need to be a jellyfish or something like that without bones so that you could support the inertia of the travel.
I don't even know if that would work. Just you'd have to be outside of your own.
you just can't punch. You just can't punch.
Utilizing one of those mathematic theories of being outside of space and time in your own bubble, and which is again completely ridiculous because time and space do not have physical attributes.
You just
So-
can't punch it. That's all. You just gotta move slowly.
Exactly. But
And
yeah, I
hope
just
you
don't
hit a
see it.
planet.
I do see us moving very fast though along electromagnetic fields in space,
Right.
and slowing down along them and things like that. But
So, what do you see as one of the problems with interspecies interspecies communication and travel?
we're just too dumb.
Really?
We still don't know how to fight cancer. We still tell everybody that HIV causes AIDS. I mean, the human
you
race
think
is
that,
fucking
You
ignorant.
think that our ignorance and our dumbness...
HIV does not cause AIDS, guys.
Hold on. You
at
think
all.
that our
HIV
ignorance and our...
is a harmless
let's stay
retrovirus.
on science. Hold on. Do you think our ignorance and our dumbness is going to be the worst part when, if we travel at the speed of light to the closest known system that could support life, the travel to and from is encroaching on the full life of a human being traveled?
They're going to be like, well, why didn't you
see it in their perspective? It would be
why
the
didn't you do it
distance.
right on your own planet, you knuckleheads? Look what y'all did over here. You don't come over here fucking with us with your stupid religions and your fucked up
You know what I'm
pharmaceutical.
saying? We are hitting a point in
I'm telling you,
time
they'll kick
where
us the fuck outta
traveling
here.
to another
It would be like a
planet.
bunch of stupid, you know what I mean? Over
Well,
entitled morons running around telling everybody else how life should be when they don't have it figured out yet. And that's
but let's just put that aside for a second.
We're
I mean,
talking
isn't
about
our
the time
like
dilation.
if I could kick people off the planet with an IQ of under 80, I would.
Isn't
Yeah.
our goal to survive, and wouldn't survival mean that we would have to get off of this rock eventually?
No. Survival would mean we'd have to learn how to drive this rock.
Drive this rock. You mean
Interesting.
Yeah, like drive it like a planet, like it is driven by electricity already. We would just learn how to alter the path of it.
take
Yeah.
the Earth somewhere else?
Yeah, that's right. If we don't need that sun, we could easily create our own sun. We don't have to even create it. I mean, if people don't, if you knew what a sun was, it's just a Z pinch in an electric field. You can create that in any electric field wherever you want to go, as long as you're using like one of the spiral arms of the galaxy, which is what's pumping that, current in the
So
first place.
basically build a Dyson sphere around the Earth and then just explore the galaxy with it.
Basically, yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, for lack of a better term, but yeah, ignite a huge plasmoid around the planet, and the huge plasmoid would, act as the purple dawn of man, our warming light, our light, everything, like it was back in the day when we were a part of Saturn's system, and it was the purple dawn of man, and then there was the let there be light story, when the plasma sheath of Saturn, which was wrapped around us like a heliopause is today, bumped into the heliopause, and then we were captured into the solar system. I say that like I was there.
Now, you know what's funny is I have heard little bits about that, but not quite in that way, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, it's in all the history. It's in all the Bibles. It's in all the
No, I
religions, and
mean
everybody talks about the purple
looked
dawn
at
of
the
man.
science of how the universe and the galaxy. I've never heard certain aspects of the way you're putting it with plasma and energy. I haven't
Think
heard
about
those,
it.
which is why it was
Saturnalia
interesting, and I wanted to get you here tonight.
Thank you. We gotta do this probably when you have more time. We can just separate a whole show. I just got
That's
in the
what we were
door.
trying to do for you at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, roughly an hour and 20
Yeah,
minutes
but I'm over
ago.
here in California, so I'm just getting off
Oh, it's
work and everything.
5.
It's
Yeah.
5:30 right now. Not even.
Damn. Well, we're gonna have to plan this out a little better and try to communicate not as rough. It's been a tight week for me trying to get a few things done, and the weather just being so nice here and there, and trying to be a real person and not an
let's do it
internet
again.
junkie.
I don't know if you got time tomorrow or whatever, but
Well,
I do.
why don't you guys trade emails so you can keep in contact?
Yeah, the
look in
message
the
is open.
right
Give
here.
me some of your social media in that Discord message that I sent you the link in, and I will definitely get hold of you before next weekend, and we'll see if we can't come up with something cool to plan out over the next couple of weeks.
There's my Gmail right there. That's
cool.
what
Because we're trying to come up with different ideas to look at every week and look at them a little more in depth and not look at too many ideas in one show, but look at a few things at a time and try to make sense of it, question
That
them.
I have an upcoming dentist appointment with wisdom tooth removal, so I may be out of sorts.
And you're gonna have to slow down and explain things to me because I don't understand everything. I'm just your plain old numbskull. I understand the concepts of things. I've got some general dynamics. I might understand that fire burns hot, but you go too far, and I'm just sitting here like.
Did you know that fire was a near perfect conductor of electricity?
There you go. I don't think I've ever hooked
It's
two wires up to fire.
Plasma. Yeah.
But with that, we've been running for an hour and 20. I don't want to go too horrible long because I am on the East Coast. My kids have just been sent to their bed. I'd like a cigarette, use the bathroom, all that whatnots, the IRL shit. This is just for fun.
Hey, it
and
was
the
good.
fun's running out when I
chatting
get
with you
tired.
again.
Yeah,
It's good
we
chatting
wanted
with you
to get
and
you on here to talk
people,
about these things, and it's cool and weird because not everybody hears different ways things are looked at. No, I'm not saying 100% that I'm behind what you're saying. I'm not saying that I inherently disbelieve you because you told me, but I'm listening. I'm listening with an open mind, and I'm going to look at that and go, okay, so what?
Can't get more open when you don't have eyes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can kind of tell that I'm not completely ignorant. I mean, just through my vernacular, you can kind of tell that, okay, you can't just be making it up because these things actually exist and work together, and charge separation and charge potential differences. Those are all very real.
if I let my mind go dumb enough, I can almost believe a flat earther.
Yeah, well, don't say that out loud.
Okay, if I make my mind... Didn't I
don't
do
wanna
a
know
damn
that.
good job the first show, Data? I tried to
Yeah.
sit there and run with the flat earther for a minute. Like, I really did try.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I tried to, and as soon as I got to the fact that the sun, you can't have a circling sun around top of a frisbee when we see observationally the
It's not a
equinox.
frisbee. It's a dome. And the sun is just a projection.
Well, if it's a dome, then how come the stars turn the other way on the southern
It's a
hemisphere?
projection. They can turn whatever way people want them
No,
to
it's a
turn.
dome. It's a double
Right.
dome. Like
Yeah,
a
it's a
booby
double.
dome.
It's a double dome. It's a washing machine.
We have
So
no
if you look at it
control over
from
that.
standing way back and you
It's a
look at
washing
it,
machine on a spin cycle.
Look,
the one pole is Nipolaris, right? Because it's a booby dome. The other
Hey,
pole,
the
Nipole.
North Pole is the most condensed spot at the center of our flat Earth, and the South Pole is the ring around us.
And there is no east and west.
Which literally makes no sense. It's like an Aesop's fable. I mean,
East and
excuse
west
me.
are clockwise and counterclockwise. That's easy. Come
No,
on.
we did.
I've put a lot of thought into this. I understand it
We
now.
did this, Joe. Get up.
All right,
Except no
everybody.
one.
Oh, it gets interesting sometimes. Other times it gets boring. Thanks so much for joining us either way. It has been fun. We're going to wrap this up and say thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hit the
Have a
button.
good Saturday night, everyone.
Come back and leave a
Oh, yeah.
comment. Let us know how you liked it and what you'd like us to cover next time. With that, thanks, everybody. Data, say goodbye.
Say goodbye.
Say goodbye.
Bye, Mr. Rim. Talk to you all later.